Hey folks, Todd Coburn here, and this video is going to explain how to create a Ti-nspire program for creating the Q matrix for composite laminate analysis. Folks taking composites or analyzing composites will find this video useful if they have a TI that they want to program. Folks that are not taking composites may still benefit from the step-by-step approach we're going to use to write this program for constructing the Q matrix. So stay tuned and let's get started. Well, let's get started. Take a look at your calculator and turn it on by pressing the on button. You're going to notice there's an area of buttons down here, and that looks like the screen to the left. And then up here, you're going to notice an area with a bunch of commands, and it's going to look like this here. You're going to notice you can just go to the scratch pad like calculate, where you can just start typing away equations. That's probably, if you've had your calculator for a few days, that's probably where you've been working, into the calculate area with just using your calculator like a normal calculator, but with a screen where you can see multiple commands. To the right, it's going to talk about how you work with documents. So what we're going to want to do first is make sure that our calculator is set so that we can read the numbers the way we want. The way to do that, now what we could do is we can put our finger on this little square area, and we can use it to select places on the screen. So normally you grab the screen directly, but you can't do that with this. But you can use your finger scrolling around on that area, and it works like you're touching the screen. So you're touching this area to scroll here. So what we're going to do is go to settings. You can put your finger here and navigate to this spot here to click on it, or you can just hit number 5, which does the same thing. What we're going to do is go down here to document settings. We want to change that. This is okay, this is okay, this is okay. But down here under calculation mode, it comes from the factory with auto selected. What that means is you're going to see fractions every time you put in a number. 4.3 is going to be some weird fraction rather than a decimal. You want to change that to approximate like mine is already set to, and then pick OK. That will make your decimals look like decimals. All right, now we're ready to create a program, which in the Ti-nspire is called a document. This document can do a bunch of things. First, we're going to want to be able to calculate things, like punch in the commands, call out the program, and use the program. We might even want to have a bunch of programs involved in a certain calculation. And instead of calling this a program, the Ti-nspire calls it a document, and it calls each little programmed function a program or a function, depending on a number of things. We're going to be using programs in this one. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a document. Now, when you create that document, it's going to create the first page of the document. Now, we think of pages like a book, and it's kind of like that. But actually in Ti-nspire, that page means an area that does something. So if it's a calculate page, it's one you can type numbers and, 5 plus 3 equals, and it will give you the result. Or you can even call out programs, like call out a program called George, enter, bang, and then George runs, and things like this. So we're going to be able to make that first page a calculate page, and then every other page we will do other things with, like put our sub-programs in those. So let's go ahead, and we're going to pick document, scroll over and press that document button, and we're going to pick new. And what we're going to do is make that first page. It's asking, what kind of page do you want on this first page of this document? We're going to make it a calculator page. You'll notice our program now is *doc. Now, doc is the default name. If we save this, it's going to put it there, and every other program we make is going to overwrite it. So we're going to change that. You'll also notice there's an asterisk before that word that has the name of the document, and that means this has not been saved since we made a change. So we're going to need to change both of that. You'll notice there's a little tab area, 1.1 is the tab, is the page we're talking about. That calculation page, this is it. If we add another page, we're going to get another little tab, and we'll look at that in a moment. First, let's save this. It's really easy to lose stuff with calculators and computers. So we're going to go to Document, click on Document, File, cancel. We're going to pick on Document, we're going to put File, and we want Save As since we haven't saved it yet. Now, what I'm going to do is I want to create that under a new folder. So I'm going to create, let's add a folder. I'm clicking on this plus folder, and we'll call this arrow 4360. Now, the reason I'm calling this folder that is this is the name of my composites class at Cal Poly Pomona. If you're one of my students, you probably want to call this arrow 4360 because all these lectures are a piece of that class. If you're an industry professional working in composites, you might as well make this word composites or something like that. So you're putting it in a folder that makes sense to you. If you're actually not trying to do composite analysis, but you're watching this video in order to learn how to program, then you might just want to call this test or something, okay? So I'm going to call this folder arrow 4360. That is the folder name. And then I'm going to select that folder, okay? It's an empty folder, this tells us, and now we can put the file name. We're going to call this Ply. Okay, this is going to be the name of our program, and in composites we call each ply or layer, and if you want a fancy name, lamina, layer, ply. All these things mean the same thing. We're going to change this later in order to have a more general use, but right now we'll just call this ply. Let's go ahead and save our new document, which currently consists of a single page. You'll notice we now see the name of the document, Ply. It's got no asterisk, which means we've saved it since we changed it. We haven't made any changes since saving it. You'll notice it has one page, which it calls 1.1, and we already saw that was a calculation page. What that means is if we type in something like 3 times 4, enter, it's going to give us the answer, the result, just like any old calculation page. You got that so far? Now, we didn't actually intend to do this calculation here. We actually were trying to just show that this is how it works. So let's go ahead and clear it. We're going to click the menu button and the action button and number 5, which is the clear history, and that clears that page so we can. Now, usually when we're calculating, it's often useful to have our calculations left. We're going to find that we can use those prior calculations by just scrolling around. However, once you get a bunch of slop on your screen, it's better to clear it, and that menu actions 5, which is clear history, will keep that page nice and clean. Okay? Now we're ready to create. Now you'll notice we changed something, so our program is unsaved again. We can tell by the asterisk. Let's go ahead and press forward. Now we're going to create a page where we're going to actually, so this page in the document is just where we're going to do calculations, calling out the program, things like this. Next, we're going to want a page where we can write the program itself. So let's go to, we're going to need to create a page. Now that's part of this same document. So what we're going to do is we're going to need to add a page. Now, if you look here, you've got the on button, you've got the document button, and right above the document button in blue, in little tiny letters, it says plus page. That's going to add a page. In order to get that, you're going to click on your blue control button and then the document button, which calls out plus page. It's asking what kind of page are we going to create. We already created a calculator page. We're going to pick a program editor page, and we're going to pick a new program, okay? All right, we're going to call this program, let's call it QMAT, because what we're going to do with this is create the Q for this layer, for this ply, okay? It's a program as opposed to a function. See, those are the choices. Great. Program. And we want to make it so we can access this program from anywhere in our calculator. So we're going to call it public. Okay, generally you're going to want to call your programs out public. If it's shown private, it'll only be available to this one little document. Enter. Now you'll notice the TI did a bunch of things. First, it created a new tab for that second page. It's calling it 1.2. So 1.1 was our scratch page. 1.2 is our program page. And you want to get used to tabbing back and forth by just clicking on those or by tabbing for those. Okay? All right. So with that said, now we're ready to, you'll notice, so it called out, you'll see it's got the program name QMAT. That's the name of this subprogram. It's in our document called Ply, which is unsaved. And you'll notice here, it put all this syntax, which calls out the first page of required information, define libpub, QMAT, the program name, open and close parentheses. That means there's no arguments or no information coming into the program. It just runs when it's run. And end program. And now we have this little box which is allowing us to type whatever. So we now have this program. Let's go ahead and document, file, save our current program. We already have a name, so we don't need to save as. That saves our program. Okay. Now, in order to do this, let's make our first command. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the Q matrix. But first, we need to put in all the information that the Q matrix needs in order to calculate it. So you can review my lecture on how to do the Q matrix, lecture 3, if you're a composites professional or a student trying to learn that. That's the information we're going to use. However, we're going to need to do this when we run this program. It can be a little confusing, those properties that are associated with some kind of material. So let's go ahead and put an informational piece of information in here. So the command in the TI is disp space, and then in quotes, I just put the quote button. Now, I'm actually typing on my computer. It's a little harder to find. Let me go ahead and remove that here. Let's go ahead. In order to find that, you're going to notice right here, we're going to hit Control and the times button, which puts those quotations. You see that? Right above the times button is the quotation mark. We're going to use that a lot. And now we're going to type what we want. So we're going to say, let's say that we're going to put in information for a fiberglass material, okay? Or we can just say a glass epoxy maybe. Whoops, I lost my quotes. So we're going to go to Control and times, which has those quote marks there in blue. We're going to call it glass epoxy, okay? All right. So this is actually, and then enter. Bang. Now we're ready for another statement. Now let's go ahead, before we do anything else, let's make sure our program is working. One great tool in programming is to check your program over and over again as you go. Don't get a bunch of stuff that's all being checked at the same time. And before this program will run, you're going to have to do this. We're going to go to Menu and Option 2, which is Check Syntax. And we want to check syntax and store our program. Now you'll notice it says QMAT was stored successfully. Now we're ready to actually run our program. Let's go ahead and do that. Go ahead and use this area to scroll over and click on this tab. And let's type the name of the program, disp. No, it was QMAT, right? That's our program name. Bang. Now what happened here is we just wrote QMAT. When you're running a program, you need to call out the arguments also. So that gave us an error. QMAT, and remember, open and close parentheses. There's no information coming into the program, so there's no information in the parentheses. However, it needs the parentheses to see that. So now we're ready to hit enter. We could have also back on the program. You'll notice it runs. Now all the program does, I'm going to click over to the program. Remember, all it does, this is the starting, this is the ending, and it displayed these words. If we go back to the calculate area where we ran the program, you'll notice it did exactly that. It just prints out glass epoxy, and then it says it's done. Now another way to do that, we could have gone, now I'm back in the program, I could have picked menu, check syntax and store, run, and that would run the program. You'll notice though that created a new page when it ran it, which now is creating a bunch of slop. That's why I preferred to run it from here where we already have a page in our calculation page. This is a nice clean area to be working. Got that? Let's get rid of that extra page. So let's click on that page and let's go to Document, Page Layout, Delete Page, and that page is gone. That keeps our program or a document clean. We have the first tab, which is our calculation area. We have the second tab, which has our program. We can go back and go back to clear that page. Remember that was menu, actions, clear history. That clears that page. We now are ready. If we want to run our program again, we just say QMAT, open and close parenthesis, enter, bang. If we want to clean that up, we go to menu, actions, clear history. That's clear again. Let's go back to our program and let's continue writing. So now we want to put in the other information for this glass epoxy material that we need to do our calculation of the Q matrix. So the information we need is the modulus elasticity in the two orthogonal directions. So we're going to call that E1. So we're going to go here. We're going to say E1. Now you're going to need a fancy equal sign that is the assignment sign. So see right here, you've got on, document, menu, delete, and then right beneath that, you'll see in blue is this colon equal. So we're going to access that by hitting the control button and then this key here, which gives us that symbol. Then we put in the value, which is 5.6 e to the 6. That's 5.6 million. And now our second one, E2, we're going to need that same assignment sign. And our next value is 1.2 million. Right? Now we're going to need our modulus, our shear modulus. We're going to call that G12. And we're going to need that control, this button, and that value, if you look up in your handbook, you're going to see that's 0.6 e to the 6. And then we're going to need Poisson's ratio, which we're going to call out since we know it's different for the different orthogonal directions. Oops. We're going to need V12, we'll call it, and we're going to use the assignment equal sign. And now we're going to put in what that is, which is, looks like it's 0.26. Okay, that looks like all the information that we need in order to calculate the our Q matrix. Let's go ahead and save this. To do that, we're going to go to Document, and we're going to go to Menu, check Syntax and Store. Great. That saved it. It says QMAT stored successfully. Let's also save our document. Document, File, Save. Okay, now we see that the document itself is saved and this little program update is saved. Let's go ahead and try it. We'll go over here and we'll type our program name with the empty parentheses, and it does the same thing. Now it actually also assigned these other variables as we see here, but you'll notice we didn't print those out, so it doesn't tell us what they are. Okay? So if we wanted to do that, we could actually show those as well. We are now ready to go and create our Q matrix. Now the first thing we're going to need is we're going to need to calculate the Poisson's ratio for the other direction. Now we're ready to start our calculations. So let's calculate our V21. That's the Poisson's ratio in the other direction. We're going to type the name of our variable, choose our assignment key, which is control this button, and then we're going to plug in our formula. And what this is, it's going to be E2 divided by E1, all that quantity times our V12. If you look in your composite handbook, strength handbook, this is the equation, E2 over E1 times Poisson's ratio in the other direction. So that is the command. Now let's go ahead and try and run this. Remember, before we do that, we need to hit Menu, check Syntax and Store. It said, okay, it stored it successfully. Let's go ahead and do Document, File, Save. Great. So we have run our program. You'll notice we now can go over to our calculation button and we can type QMAT and open and close parenthesis, enter. And it worked. Now we don't see what it calculated, but we see that the program ran successfully. Let's go ahead and do this menu, action, clear history, and clear that. Let's go back and let's put in the rest of our equations that we need. Now, we're going to be putting in the Q matrix, and what we're going to do is define each term of the Q matrix first. So let's call the first term Q11. That is we're going to use the assignment symbol. And now you're going to notice here that I can do this a good deal faster on my computer than I can on the calculator. It's a little harder to find the buttons on the calculator. As a student, I believe you get this software that allows you to pull up the calculator and create these programs on your computer. You can do this, I think, for a year before you have to pay. So you can do all this on your calculator, and actually you want to get used to doing that because sometimes you just have your calculator and you can just thumb through that. But it is a little quicker this way. So we're going to pick this one, and now we're going to put in that first equation. This first equation, let's get back to the right place. It's going to be E1 divided by, put them in a parenthesis, 1 minus V12 times V21. Got it? 1. That looks correct. Let's go ahead and pick Q12. Let's do that one next. Use the assignment button, and that is going to be V12 times E2 divided by, and we plug in the rest of our formula, 1 minus V12 times V21. Let's check that. Let's see, V12, E2, that looks correct. 1 minus V12, V21, that looks correct. Great. Let's go down to our next line of input, and we can now put in our Q22. And, whoops, not that kind of equals, control, that special equal sign, and we're going to put in, we're now ready for Q22, which is just E2 divided by 1 minus V12 times V21. And let's check our syntax. E2, 1 minus V12 times V21. Great. And now our last one, which is Q66. So Q66, assignment equals, which is right here again. And then we type in our formula, which just happens to be G12, which we input before. Now we have all of the terms of our Q matrix. We haven't yet constructed a matrix yet. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to now call out the matrix Q. And the reason we called this program QMAT and not Q is so that we could call this variable Q, this matrix. So we're going to call out Q. We're going to give that assignment equal sign, and now we're going to put in a matrix. So let's create our Q matrix. Now to do that, what we're going to do is this is a matrix, and to define a matrix, we're going to use the braces, not brackets, but the square braces. Our matrix is going to be in there. We're going to put each row, each value or each input position in the matrix is going to be separated by commas, and each row is going to be separated by semicolons. So let's see how that works. First, we're going to need that braces. You'll notice that braces is right over here. See the enter button? Go all the way left, and you've got braces and a braces. So let's go control and this open parenthesis, which actually calls out our square brackets. That defines a matrix. Then click in here, and we're going to put in our values. And if you look at your aerospace, your composite strength handbook, you see our first row is Q11, so let's type that. And then the next term is Q12, type that, comma. Next term is a 0. Then we need the next row. To get the next row, you're going to go back. You'll notice it's actually hidden under this little button here. You see your enter button? Just below that is this question mark, exclamation point, and more information, that little arrow. So let's pick that button. And then you'll notice there's our semicolon. Now we put the second row, which is Q12, comma, the next one, which is Q22, comma, 0. And now we need that semicolon. Again, it's this funny button, semicolon, and then 0, comma, 0, comma, and then Q66. That looks like our matrix. We check our syntax, looks okay. Now, if we run our program now, it will store this matrix, but we won't see it. If we want to see it, we need to display it. So let's go ahead and display space this Q matrix, okay? And then let's go ahead, and before we can run our program, we have to save the syntax, remember? So we're going to go to Menu, check syntax. That's Control B. Now, if we had hit Run, after storing that syntax, it'll create a new page. We don't want to do that. So we'll go over here to this page, and we'll type our program name. And now we see not only did it run, it displays our information, says it's class epoxy, and then it displays the matrix. We have successfully created a program that will create our Q matrix. So let's say we want to verify that. Now, this matrix, it printed it. Let's just type Q. See, it prints the value of Q. It now has stored that matrix Q as a variable, and that variable called Q is that matrix. So we can use that information. Let's go ahead and multiply Q times 5. That makes everything 5 times bigger. You'll notice now it multiplies all the values by 5. So we can actually operate on this as a normal matrix. Make sense? So let's just clean up a little bit. Menu, Actions, Clear History. Great. Come back here. We want to save this. We've already got our program saved. We want to save our document with these changes. Save. Now we see that our document is saved. All right, so let's see what we have here. If we go to Browse, you'll notice under My Documents, we have arrow 4360, and within that folder, we have our program Ply. We can run the program by using it here, QMAT, and it runs the program. Now, this particular program actually just has that information for the current material. We actually put all the data for this one ply here, which makes it less useful because now we have to go in here and change those values. However, it illustrates how a program can be made. Make sense? That's how you do it.